right. Tell me your name and what aircraft you fly and what you do in aviation.
Very good. Yeah, I'm Dr. Mike Jones, and I live in Pinehurst, North Carolina, the golf capital of the world if you're a golfer. And I fly a Cessna 210, a turbocharged T210 that I've owned for 21 years. And over the years, as I guess most airplane owners do, I have put in a series of upgrades and migrations. And putting in your fuel senders was one of the smartest decisions I made in that long saga.
Oh, wonderful. Thinking back before you had the CiES fuel senders installed, how nervous were you when flying trips near the endurance limit of your aircraft?
And that gets right to the heart of the situation, Danielle. My plane has fairly long legs. We carry 90 gallons of fuel, but it burns 18 gallons an hour in cruise. And it also can fly very high. I've had it up to 27,000 feet going over the Rockies. Well, I burn a gallon of fuel for every 1,000 feet I climb. So if I want to use all of this airplane's capability, I need to know how much fuel I have. Close enough doesn't hack it. Another issue that comes up is my office was in Connecticut, but my home is in North Carolina. And I use the 210 to commute back and forth. And it was a great tool. It is a great tool. I could literally take off when the sun come up, 6 a.m. in the morning, and practically be the first one in the office in Connecticut 3 hours later. But again, using that 18, 20 gallons an hour, you're watching those gauges constantly. And I have diverted. You have headwinds, you have unexpected bad weather, and you say, geez, I've got 22 left. Well, that's within do I want to just be within regs, or do I want to be, here tomorrow? And I diverted, bought fuel, loaded it up again, because I just wasn't that confident how much I had with the old Cessna original fuel senders. It's important to remember, my plane, like so many of these, my plane's a flying antique. It's almost 50 years old. The technology they had in 1970 something or other, mine's a 79, but they're all the same design. That technology is really old, and you guys have so much more sophisticated, so much more precise, so much more reliable technology you deploy today. Am I ranting and raving?
You're doing great.
Okay.
You're doing great. No, you're doing so good. Tell me about a time when the precise fuel information from your fuel senders helped you complete a flight that you might otherwise have not completed without an actual fuel stop.
Well, let me tell you how I came to the CiES fuel senders, all right? I had what was for me a relatively scary experience with the old fuel senders. And it was headwinds. It's just classic. Flying at night, headwinds. The airport I was going to ended up being closed by the time I got there. There was no fuel. So now I'm down to basically minimum fuel. And what am I going to do? Sleep in the plane overnight till they open? Am I going to try to jump to the next? Well, I jumped to the next airport and I made it. But I was just very, it was way beyond my pucker factor. So I made, as one of those upgrade things, I decided to do three things. I put in Flint fuel tanks, extra range fuel tanks out on the end, and I had my mechanic put your fuel senders in all 4 tanks, and I got a digital fuel display instead of the wobbly needles that Cessna sold me all those years ago. Since then, it has been a game changer. I'm not flying 6 and 7 hour legs. There's no reason to do that. But when I land, I'll do my flight planning and I'll say, okay, I'm going to land after 4 hours and 10 minutes and I'm going to have, 29 gallons left on board or 37 gallons. And I will be accurate within a half a gallon or a gallon to what I expect to use. And that just gives me enormous confidence that my wife is there, other passengers, that we're being smart about the whole thing.
Yeah, that's great. Have you ever had a fuel leak that wouldn't have been noticeable if you did not have accurate fuel information in the cockpit?
That's funny. I had forgotten about that. Yes, I did. I had a fuel cap that was put on incorrectly up in Calgary, Canada. I had gone up to Canada on a business trip, had a great time up there, and coming back, the left tank it was just, I mean, it was just going down. And I'm thinking, I couldn't explain it. You know, it was a normal fuel burn, normal fuel management process, and that left tank was emptying at probably twice the speed I would have expected. And so, you know, I sound like such a chicken, but I diverted again because something just wasn't right. And we got a ladder out and went up and looked, and sure enough, it was just cocked at a little angle, just enough. There was and that low pressure, it's like sucking on a straw, and it was just must have spewed out gallons and gallons, dollar bills just flying out of the fuel tank, you know.
Yeah.
But that was out of Calgary. That was 7 years ago. Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
It sticks with you. It
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
sticks
yeah.
with you.
Oh, for sure. Do you have accurate fuel information from Does having accurate fuel information from SAI simplify your pre-flight inspection, perhaps allowing you to make quick visual inspection of the tanks after looking at the amount of fuel displayed in the cockpit gauges?
Actually, I used to carry a fuel dipstick, and I don't do that anymore because I have 1,000,000% confidence when I turn on the master and I look at the fuel gauges that they are displaying the accurate and correct amount. I used to carry a dipstick, and I used to climb up on the ladder. You know, it's a high-wing airplane. This is work. And take a look and double check that what the old analog gauges said was what was actually in there. Now, in the past 7 or 8 years, I haven't done that at all. These gauges are spot on.
After flying with SAI's digital fuel senders, do you feel like they are of good value? And do you recommend them to your flying buddies? And if so, what do you say to them?
That's a very good question, because I got a pretty nice airplane and a pretty nice panel, and people say, "Oh, well, what navigator did you use, and which autopilot did you select?" I would guess the thing I talk about the most is the accuracy of the fuel, and I say it's simple. I don't quite remember what I paid. I think it was $700 a tank. Does that sound about right? Something.
600.
600. So I had 4 tanks. So the actual equipment was $2,400-ish, and maybe $1,000 to install. And in the scope of all the other things I've done to the plane, that's tiny money. Mm-hmm. And the payback I got for that tiny money is extreme confidence that I'm managing the plane right, I'm flying it right, I'm within weight and balance. You know, just that when I land, I will have the fuel that I expect to have. And it's just been a remarkable improvement. You know, such a simple thing, but so important. Actually, I have another story for you.
Oh, yeah?
Did I mention my brother ran his airplane out of fuel?
No, you didn't say that.
My brother was a great pilot. He doesn't fly anymore, the Heart, but he was a great pilot. But he took off and he looked at the fuel gauge and, yeah, I'll go to Boston. We lived up in New England at the time. And he went from there, he went down to Providence, and, oh, yeah, there's still enough. It should work. Yeah, anytime you hear the subjunctive in flight planning, it's a bad idea, you know? And he got over New London, Connecticut, on the way home in hard IMC, and the engine quit because those fuel gauges had lied to him. Absolute truth. Amazingly, he's looking down, and there's a hole in the cloud, and there's a runway. And he spirals down through that hole, lands, can't even taxi off. I mean, there is nothing in the tank. He tosses the keys to the line guy and stopped flying. That was the end of it. Never went back in the airplane. So, I mean, fuel, for pilots, fuel is everything. And knowing how much you have is one of the fundamental building blocks of being a good professional pilot.
I wonder if he would have flown later in life if he had our fuel centers. Like,
well, I think if he had had accurate fuel, he would have made different decisions.
Yeah.
He thought he had enough.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Last question. What's the best way for SAIS to tell other aircraft owners about their systems?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Well, I've got one part for you, and that is I write for Cessna Pilots Magazine. I've been a contributing writer there for probably 10 years. and I think you should advertise in our magazine.
You're talking to the right person, because
oh,
lo and behold, I do the media too.
There you go. But the club type magazines are very, very effective. But I think everything starts with social media.
Mm-hmm.
Google search. What does Mr. Google say? And Mr. Google's going to say your fuel senders are the best in the business. And by the way, I just did another upgrade on my airplane. I just put in a JPI 930. We replaced all of the old gauges. It still talked to your fuel senders.
Yep.
We did have to recalibrate everything again, but that was one upgrade that I didn't have to scrap and do again. Worked out great.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your
Thank you, and thank you for making such a good product.
Yeah, you're welcome.